In the woods, hiking, is Dr. Jonathan Reed.
He came face to face with a non-human entity.
And he began ripping my dog's head in half.
Reed picked up a log and hit the creature over the head. He dragged the body home. He filmed a strange metallic obelisk. When he gets home, he puts the body in his deep freeze and also performs an alien autopsy.
Opened that freezer, the creature inside sat up screaming at me.
Depending on who you ask, it's either the most important piece of physical evidence we have, or it's one of the biggest hoaxes ever pulled in this space.
Dead aliens, men in black, vanishing bracelets.
He brought a ton of evidence, but we still have many burning questions from the latest interview of Dr. Reed. Let's tune in. Thanks for tuning in to Frequency 48. My name is Danny.
Hey, and what's up? My name is Mike.
And today we're picking up on a signal that originally started back in Seattle of 1996 with a possible alien/non-human intelligent encounter in the woods. And the reason it's back on our frequency radar today is thanks to one of my personal favorite podcasts in this space, Polarity. Josh over at Polarity dropped a 3-hour sit-down interview with Dr. Jonathan Reed, and I could not stop thinking about it after I watched it. I was very captivated by the story. It was the first time I've actually heard the story from end to end. And I always thought it was fake. And when I sat down to watch the interview in a few different chunks, because it's 3 hours long, my skeptic meter changed a lot. And obviously noticed a lot of the patterns in Jonathan Reed's story that that Josh brought out very, very well. And so anyway, we're going to kind of recreate that scenario, how I kind of experienced this story, to kind of just put people in the shoes and how I think both of us, Mike and I, have gone through this journey together and how we kind of look at stories and weigh them and decide for ourselves what we think is going on.
Yeah, you sent that over to me this week, and I'm not familiar with the story at all. So I think my commentary, my biases is completely fresh. It's somebody coming in new to the story. So I can't wait to dive into it. And by the way, huge shout out to Josh. Link to his channel, full interview is in the description. So go show him some love. Make sure to give us some love too. But today, Danny and I, we're going to break it down. We're going to provide our commentary and what our burning questions are with this latest retelling of Reed's encounter and his latest documentary from Dr. Jonathan Reed, Contact in the Woods.
All right. So quick context before we dive in. Because this case has a lot of moving parts, it's also a 3-hour interview. We're not going to cover the whole thing, but we are going to show the footage first. We're going to get to the juicy stuff right away after we get the context out of the way, and then move into our questions and some of the key moments in Josh's interview as we kind of provide some commentary and our thoughts and just questions that arose when we were watching it and have the discussion. So strap in and let's go. The year is 1996. Outside Seattle in the woods hiking is Dr. Jonathan Reed, who is who claims to be a child psychiatrist for Washington Medical Center. I believe in Josh's interview, I could be mistaken here, but I believe there is record of Jonathan Reed working at the place up until the moment happened and things kind of get crazy with his credentials, much like Bob Lazar. So outside the woods, he's hiking with his dog, Susie, who is a golden retriever. And what happens next is one of the most controversial encounters in UAP history. Possibly the footage we'll look at in a moment might be real. And if so, that poses a lot of crazy questions. Depending on who you ask, it's either the most important piece of physical evidence we have, the footage, and the link device that Jonathan Reed claims to have as well, or it's one of the biggest hoaxes ever pulled in this space.
So the gist of the story is Reed claims he was hiking. He came face to face with a non-human entity. He didn't know what it was at first, and his dog was attacking it, and he watched it kill his dog. It was like shaking it. And in a panic, Reed picked up a log and hit the creature over the head. He says Then like he got sick, and over the course of hours, he brought the body home. He drug the body home and put it in the deep freeze in his garage. So for after the attack and bringing it home, he was documenting it with a VHS type recorder, old camcorder. He has photos, videos. He filmed a strange metallic obelisk. He also got a metallic kind of wristband, I guess. He calls it the link. And he claims he got it from the creature and he's used it. So from there, the story goes all over the place. You know, men in black at the front door, a friendly group called the Alliance, the alien itself, which he called Freddy. It's a pretty wild story. So it's either, like you said, the most important piece of physical evidence we have, or one of the biggest hoaxes.
Let's pretend, just for the hell of it, this is kind of how my approach has been from the start, is for fun, for a thought experiment. Pretend it's real. Pretend I'm also the person experiencing this. Practice some deep empathy. Try to really think, close your eyes and feel what this might be like after you take in more of the footage and the story that we're about to go into. Just try it from that angle and see what would happen and see how it comes out.
Or you could go, the opposite and just not believe it for a second, but then it's no fun anyway. And why are you watching? Don't do that. Don't tune off. Don't tune out. No, stay, damn
please, God, no.
No, I didn't mean it.
I think it's really important to keep that perspective. I think when people hear, wild stories like this, especially in this space or anything else that's paranormal, it's very easy to just not really put yourself there. But when you put yourself there, you can start to see maybe like, hey, if this guy isn't bullshitting, maybe this is how I would feel too. And I think it's just a good practice in general, just to practice empathy with other people's stories, or you don't know. It's their version of reality, right? So anyway, with that said, let's get into it and have some fun. We're about to watch the first encounter in the woods after Reed has knocked out the alien. It's very shaky. He's hyperventilating, understandably so, if, again, this was all real. And I'm going to go ahead and kind of play this little snippet here.
That's him throwing up.
I believe you can actually see, like, I just noticed this because I haven't seen this in a little bit. You can kind of see a little blood pooling right here.
Yeah, later on, he shows his autopsy. Like, that's where he hit him with the log.
So when I remember seeing this probably about a year ago, probably maybe before that. I know I've seen it in the zeitgeist of ufology. It's like, I feel at some point you've seen all the big stories, all the footage and photos that there is that are the most credible, believable, or anything in between, right? So I saw this. I was at very first, before, again, knowing the interview, I was like, yeah, this feels very staged. Like he's shaky, he's hyperventilating. I'm getting in. Once you hear his story, it kind of makes sense. It kind of really makes sense. And again, this is the part of the empathy where I was talking about, where it's going to be important.
So if you just saw your dog evaporated by an alien being and then you hit it over the head, I probably would hyperventilate as well. So either, he wasn't a doctor and he was like a super good actor. I don't know if you would even say like super good actor, but I think that is a believable reaction. That's a realistic reaction, hyperventilating and like freaking out. Yeah. I don't know if I would have the presence of mind to go grab my camcorder or not.
I was thinking the same thing. So this next little snippet is him recording. So he's already recorded the alien in the woods. Now he notices the obelisk wedge shape craft coffin, I call it. Like, this is fucking creepy. It literally, like, I saw him, like, this kind of reminds me of like a black floating sci-fi coffin or some shit. I'm assuming, I think most people would assume, because it's floating, and that it's about the size probably of the alien or smaller, it can contain him, that this is how he maybe got here. Maybe it opens up, maybe he gets inside. I don't know. Maybe it's his car, right? Like we don't really know. Anyway, let's play the clip.
This is the black object we call the Obelisk. Dr. Reed called it.
Come on, work. Come on. I can't believe it.
6 definite sides.
So his reaction there, like at the very end of that VO, was you can hear something in his voice. You can hear him like starting to cry and like, this is like, come on, work. Like he's starting to say like, this isn't real or something like that. He gets cut off. But like this part is, again, I think Josh points this out in his previous analysis of the video, that he's doing things that I would say, if you're hoaxing it, would be very difficult to pull that acting ability out. You know what I mean? Like it would have to take a lot. And that we find this a lot with many experiencer stories when they're talking on camera, that they're just, when you really hear them and you sit down with it, you're just like that, the way they cry, the noises they make when they're crying, and he's hurling, and he's he's obviously hyperventilating. He's probably smelling some awful things from everything that happened to him. And it's just like, dude, like it, come on, like that's a lot. That's a high end to go. And if you don't have a background in acting or film or anything of the sort, I feel like, or researching that, I don't feel like people would go to those lengths.
So I think we kind of pointed out too, when he attacked the alien, he said its suit made him sick. It was like a defense mechanism. That's why he was throwing up. And then he wrapped the body in a tarp and he was dragging it back to his car because he wanted evidence. And then he came across the Obelisk, which it's really weird to me. I've never heard of anything like flat floating.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, like, is it a car? Why is it so small? And then one thing that's kind of consistent with a lot of other encounter stories, you know, people always are asking, well, in this day and age with cell phones and video cameras, why is there not good footage? There's story after story of people that have had a video camera, you know, police cars with dash cams, when they have seen objects, UFOs, UAPs, it messes with the electronic equipment. Like, and you saw it having like rolling stutter and the tape messing up, and he's screaming, "No, please work, please work." And then another example of this is like, if you watched, we talked about Skinwalker Ranch, the TV show, a little bit, how it's kind of my dirty soap opera, my guilty, trashy TV show.
Part of the sky, and I could find things all around the perimeter of it, but nothing in the middle.
It was baffling that telescopes of this caliber, design, and from different manufacturers would all glitch like that. In fact, we've had so many sophisticated equipment failures take place during our experiments that it's almost become a sign that something strange is about to happen on the ranch. We need to launch this rocket now.
But that's how they know that there's some kind of activity, some piece of equipment is malfunctioning.
I want to add real quick. So this is a photo that came up in Polarity's video here, and at least I believe it's a still photo. I need to do my own deeper research with all this stuff, but it's on my to-do list. But if this is a still photo, Jonathan Reed, we'll hear him most likely in coming up here. He talks about this as film. So this is the copyright of the image here is 99, but the event happened in 96. And I can't remember if digital cameras were out around 96. I think if they were very like high end, state of the art, and probably very expensive.
Digital, not like solid state SD cards or anything like that, right. But digital as in, you know, they had VHS tapes. They also had, I think the mini VHS tapes came much later. He did kind of mention like he thought it was an 8mm film, but in the scan lines, the scan lines, like film wouldn't have scan lines like that. Film, what you would see the rolling film, you would actually see the physical, I forget what you call it, on the side, the little dots on the side of the film. You would see more film artifacting than that VHS.
Right. I think So he probably, I might have missed this detail, but I believe it's most likely that he has a VHS camera for the footage, film camera for the photo that we're staring at right now, which is pretty sharp compared to the footage, of course.
Is this a photo he took?
I believe so. I think he preserved one of the photos. I know in his story, we'll play that part and we'll have to comment on it. But I believe in the story, he, whoever he called or his friend called Gary, during that calling spree, when he called back MUFON, the people pretending to be MUFON took the negatives. So I don't think he has the negatives anymore of originally what he had, which obviously would have been great. But clearly, Men in Black are run deep into all the circles here, especially when there's events like this that show up on their radar, which that's another juicy point. Okay, so now I'm going to play through, and I'm also going to skip ahead to, I'm just going to kind of skim around here really quickly, but
leave it there. I was afraid. I thought maybe I'd murdered something. I wasn't thinking clearly.
This is Reed showing the body wrapped up. This is him in his, I believe, in his basement. And it's wrapped in like a thermal blanket.
I drove home and I put it in my freezer in my garage because it was a piece of meat.
It's kind of hard to see how long or how tall it is, but it does look like it's 4.5 feet, maybe 5 feet. It's hard to tell.
It wasn't just the clear thought of.
I'm going to kind of skip through here just a little bit. It's him kind of unwrapping things. Now, I remember watching this and for the first time without any context, and I was just like, okay, this just doesn't feel, and Reed explains in the Polarity interview that, is he blinking?
That's what I thought was weird too, because he mentioned in his interview with Josh that when he did his autopsy, people were saying the alien was blinking and he never noticed it. So he's like doing an autopsy on this alien and it's blinking and he doesn't realize it. And then I didn't realize it was like right there. I'm like, I see it. Like, how did you miss that, man?
Right.
The alien's alive. Don't cut it.
It's just open surgery on a fucking alien. Just no anesthetic. Just fuck you. You killed my dog.
Oh man. He went John Wick on him before John Wick even existed.
So he's tiny. He's a tiny boy, Freddy. And I thought the interesting thing that in retrospect, I remember seeing this footage probably a couple of different times from different videos in the past before this Polarity analysis and before the interview. And the thing that always got me was the head inconsistency, but that gets cleared up in the interview, which we'll get to. He just doesn't look like a typical. He doesn't look like a typical gray alien. It's not like the head looks too small and it looks too much like a light bulb. You know what I mean? It's like, it's got this really long neck and it's got like no jaw line, no definition to the edges of the head. I'm going to keep playing. I'm going to kind of turn down the music or the audio here a little bit. I'm going to skip ahead too, so we can get a little bit better. So these are the eyes. There's a nose. You can kind of see the eye
like
there. Yeah, you can kind of see it. It's kind of like loosely moving. And now he's opening the mouth. Dude, so, okay, if this is real, Jonathan Reed's got some balls, bro, he's filming it. He's touching it. I don't think I'd be touched. I don't know what I would do. Like if this was me.
I don't know if I would touch it either. Well, if this was, I don't know, say some kind of mannequin or puppet, like mannequins you can't open a mannequin's mouth without it.
Right.
So this would be 1996, a pretty advanced puppet of some sort, I guess.
Right. Yeah. This is probably, if it's a puppet, it's advanced. I mean, it's the problem is that because it's from late 90s,
mid 90s, pretty much.
Yeah. Mid late. It's really hard to see details. Right. And he's also just strange looking. Just like I said, he just doesn't follow the normal gray alien kind of blueprint, but he answers that. So
he's also note on his skin, like if it's a puppet per se, like it looks paper mache-y.
Yes.
Like it doesn't, it is not, I'm not talking like Jim Henson puppet or anything like that. It's got texture to it. It seems
it's like leather,
like a
it's
corn husk.
Yeah. Oh it's like this dried up. Yeah. That's part of, I think, what throws off. And then like this is a still shot that's probably been enhanced. It's kind of hard to see where. Yeah, I believe he said that you can see the iris.
If that's one of the photo cameras, wasn't his friend there? But his friend didn't really do anything.
I believe so. And this is like a pretty good shot. Again, I don't know if this was enhanced. This is so you can see the skin. You can see a lot of texture detail. He's got no nose, no definition of a nose, no jawline. If it is, it's sunken in, right? And he's got these on his neck look like veins. And Reed talks about how the color changed as the alien, like as he saw them, as he got hit, as he got in the freezer, as he woke up from the freezer, his complexion and skin color changed quite dramatically. Obviously he fucked him up here pretty bad with the bat.
Well, I mean, I guess the way to take out an alien is a solid whack with a stick, like a pinata.
Just old
Freddy
school,
pinata.
just caveman him, just fucking no guns, no knives, just
just pulse rifle. Stick. We just need sticks.
We just need sticks. Yeah, we don't. Yeah, fuck the quantum shit. We just need sticks, people.
It's like Signs, the M. Night Shyamalan Signs, where you just needed water to take out aliens.
Oh right, yeah, exactly. It's like the easiest thing. All right, so this is another freaky like still shot up. I think an enhancement of like the eyes and stuff. Now, here's something I want to call out real quick is. When I saw there's other, if you look at this case online on, anywhere on Google, Instagram, TikTok, whatever, you'll see some like another set of, AI enhanced or 4K recreations of the thing. Right. And it's filling in details that may or may not be there. But I will say that when I saw photos that look like this, imagine if you saw this like in the dark anywhere at any time period in human history. This kind of has this ominous look to it, right? Like whether you believe in demons or angels or anything of that sort, this thing looks freaky. It looks a little intimidating. It looks a little scary. Obviously we don't see it with the eyes open and it moving. So it's hard to gauge that stuff. But like, I would see that and be like, this thing looks evil and menacing. That would be my first instinct is what I'm saying, even without the demon context involved.
So one thing that he did mention, like Josh asked him about this, about the glowing eyes, and Dr. Reed was saying how the eyes glow like a cat or a dog's would at night when like you have a flashlight. And so you're talking about demon eyes. I remember so many times as a kid, like seeing a dog or a cat's eyes at night with the light reflecting off it would scare the crap out of me. And that's what this reminds me of.
Yeah. If you saw that, I think if anybody saw that in broad daylight, night, anything, you're going to freak the fuck out, dude. There's no way you're getting around it, which is, yeah.
Real quick on this angle. The clothing that's supposed to be advanced looks like a cheap Walmart sweatshirt.
Right. That's a great point. There's not enough like detail, at least with some of these clips with the clothing. That's a great point, dude. I didn't even really think of that. His story is very fantastical when he gets to the suit, which we definitely are going to touch on in a bit here. But yeah, it looks like an oversized sweatshirt you got from Walmart or something. And
is that
apparently, what is that? This is the, he's showing the glove thing, right? Remember he has like fingers, but they're in like a three, it's like doing the Spock thing where you pair your index and your middle finger together and your ring and your pinky and then your thumb. It's like kind of like that. It's like a glove ish type of thing, but he said he had more than 3 giant fingers. It was just the fingers were in these
it's
slots or whatever. So this is him kind of examining the the wound, and it's got like a whole flesh flap, which is crazy to think that this alien's like unconscious, let's say, right? And I mean, if that was you and you're out, that would hurt like a motherfucker. That's all I'm gonna say. Like that would really suck. Have a giant piece of flap hanging off your skull. The fact that this thing survived too is really a thing we'll probably talk on later.
What color is the blood? Did he say it was red? Because it kind of looks red.
It does. And if it's, he talks about the genetics. I feel like if it does have the genetics, he says it does, then it would make sense that the blood would be red, because it's basically a hybrid. It has some human. It's got, what is it, dolphin, and was it sea turtle? I can't remember. But it's got genetic markers that are of other creatures on Earth. Which I have lots of questions on. But yeah, it would make sense that the blood would be red for that reason to exist here on Earth. Most things have red blood.
You know what would make like that shot a little more convincing was like to be able to see under the neck, like he's rotating the neck to make sure, like if it was a puppet or a mannequin, there'd be a seam, right? Like right below there.
Right. Man, I really wish this thing was like in 4K,
Yeah, it's VHS. It's like 360p,
Yeah. These enhancements, like whoever's been doing these, I don't know if it was Josh. I think in this interview from a year ago, I think it was some other people that have done their own enhancements and stuff, probably a mix of Photoshop, upscaling, and some other things, or it could have been Josh too. But they look a lot better. You can see the details. The other thing that gets me is like, look at his like legs. They look, and his arm looks very rubber bandy. Like it doesn't look like there's a hard edge, like there's no like hard joints, but that does also follow his, like, let's say that he has bone or whatever, a skeleton underneath. It kind of goes with like the lack of details in the head too. I don't know. The legs look very fake to me. If I'm being honest, even now, right? They look a little wonky.
That seems Jim Henson-y. Like,
yeah, totally.
Think of Kermit the Frog's legs.
Exactly. That's exactly it. That's dude. Perfect. Yes. Soundbite. That's perfect. Mm-hmm. Okay. So now we're going to look at Reed's interview with Josh that just came out. So right now we're fast forwarding to, he's just finding the alien with his dog. And it's very heartbreaking to hear.
Sure. We'll call it a creature. This creature was throwing my dog with one hand back and forth like this, as fast as you could possibly do it. So fast that it was like a paint shaker, if you know what that is. It's vibrating really fast. And I couldn't make out what this thing was, but I could see my dog going through the air as fast as you can imagine. So fast I couldn't visually actually see her clearly. But nevertheless, there it was. And as I watched, I mean, this is all happening within about 10 seconds. As I watched.
Shaking of the paint can analogy, like everybody knows what that is and how fast that is. Imagine your dog that you've had for however many years, that's happening. Like what Reed is experiencing here, from my perspective, when I was thinking of this, was like, if that was true, if that's what he saw, like that's extremely traumatic for a human. Like if somebody just kicks your dog, you're going to have a visceral reaction, let alone something that's so honestly, like, sounds fantastical of a dog moving that quickly with a being that small. Right. And so this is one area of detail that I wanted to just pluck out here, because I noticed other people in the comments of the video too were mentioning similar things. And that's the first thing I thought. I was like, Jesus Christ, like that's your brain can't even, you're trying to process your dog under duress, moving extremely quickly, seeing a being that you've never seen before on Earth. You got ontological shock on top of trauma, on top of like just taking all that in extremely fast, right, in the moment. So
the whole kind of like paint can shaker, right? That seems very fast, but like, look at my hand in the video. Like you kind of see it going blurry, and I'm not going super fast or anything. But also, he's hiking through the woods, and so they're under like a shaded canopy. So there's less light, making your your iris opens up a little bit more and stuff like
That's
that.
true.
You kind of think of shutter speed. So even though it seems fast, like going like this, like it might not have been like, at first I was thinking like a superhuman speed.
That's
like,
what I was thinking too.
Almost like a warp in the Matrix kind of thing. But I think it was fast, but it might not be so fast like a paint shaker.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And
Great
there's
analogy.
a little less motion blur when you're outside in broad daylight, but it was still probably pretty fast, but not like, what I think about is, do you remember the Simpsons episode for April Fool's Day where Bart put Homer's beer in the paint can shaker?
Yeah.
I always think about that.
Yeah.
Looks like there's beer coming out of the chimney.
I am proceeding on foot, calling a code 8.
We need pretzels. Repeat, pretzels.
Pretzels. We need pretzels because it was a beer can explosion.
All right, cool. I'm going to resume.
He stopped throwing her back and forth. He had a black suit on that was almost like spandex, which later I was able to look at closely. But part of the arm of this suit that he had covered his hands, his arms, all in one piece, almost like it was sprayed on. Part of this expanded up on the top of my dog's head, and he began ripping my dog's head in half, tearing her backbone and her head right off of her body. It was a horrible thing to say. She was wailing and barking and screaming at this time.
Yeah, this part is like really, really tough. Like I can't imagine someone doing that to my pet. I think most people could echo, right? Just witnessing what he's describing would just horrify you. It's like nightmare fuel. And so I think that, the first thing I thought of when this happened, when he mentioned this part, was I was like in disbelief. I'm like, that sounds nuts. I also haven't heard of anything like that in other cases, right? They do describe clothing. It's usually blue or dark black. It's skin tight, right? Especially grays. We hear other like Nordics have similar kind of clothing. But when I heard the appendage, I'm like, it sounds like venom. It sounds like a symbiote suit, right? It's responding to the threat by creating an appendage or shooting out of itself to grab the head and then do a thing. And I'm also thinking to myself, well, if this thing is so advanced, why is it doing this brutal like fatality to the dog, right? Why can't it just throw the dog, right? Why can't it stun the dog? Like, do you have to kill it? Do you have to kill it by ripping its fucking head off? Literally?
Too, is like, all the experiencer stories, like they're like paralyzed, frozen.
Right.
Why couldn't he freeze the dog?
Right.
Is it because the dog can't look into its eyes? I think that's also a common thread too, is like people look into these deep round eyes of the aliens, and then it's like the telekinesis or the hypnosis or whatever takes over.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why, but you would, to your point, can't you just telekinesis the dog, use a little telekinesis bolt instead of fatality?
Dude, literally, right? Like, and I hate to like make fun of that, but like I'm just like thinking of this is nuts. Why is it such a brutal death? And maybe the suit, maybe just speculating, right? We don't know, but like maybe the suit is just is designed to purely, I believe he says this later in the interview, but like it's designed because I think he asked Freddy about the suit after the fact. And he says it's kind of designed to protect them in all ways. So it probably monitors their body temperature perfectly. It probably, the first thing I also thought of that he also says later on is, as soon as he, like literally the moment the stick touches the alien's head, the moment of impact, Reed is knocked down exactly at the same time. And I immediately said to myself, it sounds, like I said, it sounds like a symbiote suit that's so aware that as soon as the being, whoever's wearing it, is under distress or anything, it reacts immediately. I mean, the counterattack was like instant, hits him, boom, drop to the ground. Like, I'm weak now. I'm nauseous. I'm he doesn't know what's happening to him. I thought it was like maybe a psychic attack. It sounded like a psychic counterattack to me.
Yeah, it doesn't seem so far-fetched, like in the realm of science fiction, the things that we think about nowadays. Like you mentioned, a venom suit. It doesn't seem so far-fetched that some advanced civilization would have a suit with self-defense measures, like automatic self-defense measures. I mean, we have lots of stuff now that trigger automatically. It's not a huge leap to do that with some kind of Kevlar vest or something. But I've never heard any other experience or story that is similar in that regard. This is pretty unique, I feel like.
And anyway, he just said, that's part of our security. It's part of my suit,
Interesting.
And I said, how come some of you guys don't wear any clothes? Well, he said it's a situation where clothes can hide determination. So in other words, he's saying things that wear clothes don't always tell you the truth. But he said, when we don't have any clothes on, we are raw. We are telling you we are the absolute at that point.
So when he says that,
dude, that's so interesting to me.
So when he says the word the absolute, it's funny you just mentioned the Gateway tapes too, because Robert Monroe labels God or source or whatever you want to call it as the absolute, like all that is. So I thought funny connection, might not be related here, but to piggyback off of the clothing versus naked conversation, like this is like, I've never given it this thought from this perspective before. So I thought this was super fun to think about.
It seems like a pretty important detail that isn't discussed a lot.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, right? So if we take it for what he's saying, right? And let's assume it's probably not the case, but let's assume all grays in all experiences, when they show up naked, are, let's say, steer on the edge of being more benevolent, or there's less of a way they can deceive us, I guess. There's less deception involved.
It might not even be benevolent. Like somebody could be having a pretty bad encounter and they could still not be wearing clothes, but they're not hiding it. They're not trying to deceive you that like, it's cool, everything's fine. They're just like, this is what's happening. They're being straightforward.
Yeah.
I don't know if it necessarily goes with being benevolent, but maybe being able to not be deceived at least.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. It's super interesting to think about. And then the other case that comes to mind right away that I was imagining was, because I remember it very vividly with the paintings, is David Huggins in Love and Saucers, which nobody talks about. And we definitely need to do a whole deep episode on that, because that's going to be a fun one. But he draws the grays that abduct him from an early age with blue suits, skin tight blue suits. Mm-hmm. And the being that he also encounters later is naked, and I don't want to spoil it, but it just brought up those questions. And then I started thinking back to other cases where people talk about clothes or not clothes, Travis Walton, Whitley Strieber, etc. I think Whitley's,
Whitley, the little like drone ones, aren't those ones clothed?
They have robes. They have like, they look like gnomes and shit too. They look all ugly and like, those are
some of them had like the jumpsuit thing too.
They might. I just recall, and I could be thinking of, what am I thinking of? I might be thinking of Fire in the Sky, where they have the little gnome looking creatures. But I think Whitley said that that's similar to what he saw, if I recall correctly.
Dude, the jumpsuit thing goes all the way back to Betty and Barney Hill, right? Yeah. And I just thought it was a weird discrepancy. You're like, some people talk about they're wearing clothes. Some people say they're just naked aliens. I was thinking it was like just a discrepancy, but now there could be a reason to it. Right. And so you remember last episode where we said, which one do you want to meet? And you said Nordic. I want a hot Nordic wife, right? But I've never heard a story of a naked Nordic. So you think that they're benevolent and we can trust them. But if you go by this clothes theory, right, they may be deceiving us. They're like, you can trust us. We're hot. We're compatible. Yeah. You think I'm sexy?
Rudy.
We are raw. We are telling you.
Raw dogging it.
We are the absolute at that point. So that's why a lot of them don't wear clothes.
Right.
Like,
other than this sort of
just alien nude beaches everywhere.
Yeah, that's how you know. I also think about with the whole clothing thing. I mean, you wouldn't consider this great cinema by any means, but it is a pretty good movie, Forgetting Sarah Marshall. Do you remember that movie?
Yeah,
Kristen Bell and Jason Segel. Yeah. At the beginning of the movie, he comes out naked in front of Sarah Marshall, and she rejects him. Like he's bearing himself. He's completely naked to her and vulnerable, and she rejects him. And then at the end of the movie, I forget Mila Kunis's character's name, but same thing happens. It's like a good bookend to the movie. She catches him naked. He's naked, vulnerable, completely himself, and she accepts him.
That's
so
great.
It's pretty good cinema from that.
That's good. That's good filmmaking. It's funny you say that because I always tell people at work, like you gotta bookman the parallel, the opening and ending have to parallel, like good storytelling, good screenwriting at the very least. Good. Yeah. So now we're going to look at, this is a pretty pivotal point in the story where
he's done the autopsy, and then he went back to the freezer, like day 3, right?
Yeah, I think this was after Gary and stuff too, right?
So I went over, opened that freezer, and the thing inside, the creature inside, sat up out of the end of the thermal blanket with his head screaming at me.
Oh my God, that's awful.
Just forcefully screaming at me so much that it felt like it was pushing me back, pushing me across the room. And I just ran out of the garage, went into my house, closed the door, and just sat there for a couple of minutes, called Gary, and I said, we got a bigger problem.
You got a problem, all right. So putting yourself in his shoes, a dead alien body sits up in your freezer and screams at you.
There's a lot to kind of cover here. The first things that were coming to my mind were, okay, first of all, the freezer, I think he mentions the degrees that it's set to, but it's cold. It's like, I think it's like 0 degrees Fahrenheit, I think he says, or it's definitely below freezing, obviously. So granted, it's in a thermal blanket, but even then this, and he's also in its protective, smart symbiote suit, whatever it is. So maybe it's keeping him alive, but he's also, remember, he's got a head wound, right? Touching the ice cold of the freezer this whole time for what, like a whole day, at least a day and a half, 2 days.
Yeah, this is the third day. So first day was the attack. Second day was he did a autopsy or examination, which I don't know if he's been in the
freezer at least 24 plus hours, at least, right?
Yeah.
So my first thought was, how the fuck can this thing survive that temperature? We find that out later on with the genetic thing, which we'll touch on, or at least maybe partly. But the other thing I thought was really crazy, obviously the scream sounds, you could probably make that up. That could have been a human, to be honest with you, like on the audio file, right? But again, let's pretend it's real. That's got to be really scary post, seeing just that everything he just described. And then I thought when he describes it pushing him back, I said to myself, I wonder if these creatures can psychically move you. Like it's sort of like it's feeling fear or whatever it's feeling. And it's the scream is like projecting. It's like X-Men or something. It's like a mutant ability where it's like literally like pushing you back because it's part of, maybe he wasn't fully healed and whatever, but it's just interesting. I just thought it was a fun thing. Like he's projecting him back with just his voice.
Well, and then he runs out of there too. Like, because nobody really has reported, like, I've had a conversation with an alien vocally. Everything is telepathic. And so the fact that you get, a claim of them with their little tiny mouths going kind of thing,
the mouth,
that's freaky, right?
Yeah.
Because
it also proves, again, if this is real, it proves that maybe they do have some kind of vocal ability. They just never use it.
Well, and it also had a head wound. So maybe its telepathic ability was damaged. I mean, they're talking about too, like it was Freddy, the alien, was awake during his autopsy. Mm-hmm. And if he had telepathic ability, which he states later he does, he has a telepathic conversation with him after the whole freezer thing. But like, why wouldn't it would have had to been damaged for him to not telepathically say, "Hey, stop, dude, I'm awake. I'm alive."
Right.
So maybe he couldn't communicate telepathically, and so he had to like muster up his little baby alien strength and kind of
down in
get him to stop.
Yeah, go down. Go down frequency.
Get down to his level.
Yeah, do you go down to human level and just use our vocal cords, anyway. But
it's like us barking to dogs, like bark, bark, roof, roof, roof. He's like doing that to
us. So this part, very fascinating. The fact that it can survive in the freezer for that long is pretty crazy. So we're missing some details, but basically he leaves, and then there's sort of they take the conversation and the interview elsewhere, and then it doesn't really come back to where we don't really know where Freddy is in between the Men in Black showing up, and we do know that Freddy's still there in the basement. Right. But
Freddy's body disappears. So this was day 3 with the scream, and he says day 10 is when he fled to Canada. There's all this Men in Black stuff and his credentials getting erased. But between day 3 and day 10, Freddy's body disappears. Dr. Reed does mention he talked with Freddy for 3 or 4 days, like as he was recovering, but he doesn't give specific details in this interview anyway. Like you said, maybe we should go back and check some of the other ones about when that specifically happened and how it happened. But we know based off this interview, the contact in the woods, and just kind of looking through the transcripts, between day 3 and day 10, like everything goes downhill for Dr. Reed, and he has to flee to Canada and become homeless.
Yeah, his life becomes really, really shitty really fast. Even as he was saying, like what day 2, day 3, he's calling in sick for work, and they're already telling him people are at his office, like wiping away his files and stuff. And he I think it's day 4 or something. He calls and he's just like doesn't even work there anymore. And
it was like 6 o'clock. Gary left. I was home trying to calm down, trying to lay down. There was a knock on my front door. I was alone at home. There was a knock at my front door. I went and answered the door. I thought it was Gary. And it was 3 people, all dressed in black suits with very, very white skin. 2 of them had sunglasses on, so I couldn't see their eyes. The one guy says, "We're here to talk to you about what you found in the forest."
And this was the first day.
I said, "I've never talked to you before." And they said, "We need to talk to you." And he literally pushed his way into my living room.
Bro, he said white skin, and 6 feet tall. Like they sound like Nordics.
Nordics, right, dude? I thought the same thing when he said those details. I was like, these sound like Nordics, right? There was another memory that I recalled from, I want to say Richard Dolan. I could be getting this detail wrong, so forgive me, whoever's watching. But I'm pretty sure it was Dolan. I'm just going to roll with it. I think I remember Dolan or somebody saying in an interview that they met with Nordics, and the Nordics said you should disarm your nukes, and the guy was like, why? Because then we'd be defenseless. And then they like gave him a smirk, and not like a good smirk, like hey, you figured it out without us telling you, kind of a smirk.
You should disarm your nukes, yeah. Why do these Nordics have German accents? Why do we do that?
It's funny. I don't know. They're probably not even German. They're just, just Swedish, whatever.
We need to work on our Swedish impressions, right?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we need to diversify there a little bit. Anyway, but like I thought the same thing. I was just like, that was the first thought I had in my mind. They're very white. Now, there's some other details that come on a little later. So everybody listening, put a pin in this conversation here for a little bit later, but let's keep going.
They look very white skin, very white skin. That was the first weird thing I saw. But then I realized what they were wearing was all the same material that their suit was made out of. And it was almost hypnotic, the weave in it. Like if you looked at it too long, you almost felt like you were dizzy or starting to be unconscious. At first, I took that to be, well, it's the sickness that I'm going through. But the longer they were there, the more I felt the way they were talking was hypnotic. It was really, really hypnotic.
So I thought, obviously he's mentioning the clothes, which is another detail I feel like people sometimes miss. I could be wrong, but I feel like somebody else may have mentioned something like this with Men in Black previously. But we just had the conversation about the Freddy suit, and my first thought was, well, let's assume I'm going to make a lot of assumptions. Let's assume these Men in Black are sided with Freddy, right? What if they have literally the same suit on that look like human clothes, look like a human suit, but can do all the things that Freddy's suit can do? Like that would be kind of wild.
I forgot about that detail, that he said the Men in Black suit was the same material as Freddy. Cheap Walmart.
No, but I don't think he said it's the same material. He's saying it's this hypnotic weave. He says the whole encounter is hypnotic. We haven't gotten to that quote yet, but it could also have been. I think like I got the sense that when he talks, he keeps going about this. He describes the entire experience as being hypnotic, like the way they talk, the clothes. So I had this impression that with them in the room, they're maybe trying to influence him or get into his head telepathically or like psychically, or they're trying to put him in some kind of a dream state or something where he'll spill the beans. But I also thought like, well, if let's say the Men in Black are, they're clearly not positive, right? They're they're clearly there to cover up things and intimidate people, right? Hurt people in some cases. And so what are they? But then they're clearly, I don't think they're human, right? So are they shapeshifters? Are they hybrids? Are they Nordics? Are they reptilian? Are they whatever? And if so, if they were, my biggest question here is, wouldn't they be telepathic? Wouldn't they be able to get in his head and know that Freddy's down there? Because they clearly didn't.
Right. They didn't know for sure. And I wonder if, like, let's assume they're Nordics. I wonder if, because I can't tell you exactly where. I have heard there's like different levels, of telepathy that the different alien races have. Like mantids would be very strong in that, right?
Right.
And Nordics are probably like maybe so at it, because a lot of reports are mixed with Nordics,
Mhm.
if they're speaking or if they're talking in their mind. And it seems very limited, them talking in their mind. And then also, if we're talking about the Men in Black, we're just all speculating. We don't know anything. Don't come after us. If they were aliens working, are they A, pretending to work for the government, or B, actually working with the government?
Yeah, good question. Let's keep going.
Was there some kind of similarity between the material of their suit and the material of the thing that's in your freezer?
No, it didn't look anything like.
So there's our answer there.
We know we know what happened to your dog. And soon as he said that, I said, "You don't know anything." And he said, "Yes, we do. Where did you park your Jeep?" Okay. I'd never seen these people before. And they're now telling me things that only somebody would know who knows me.
So I just got chills rehearing this. And the first time I heard it, I got chills because he does some very intentional pauses in like this statement here. And I said to myself, okay, again, assuming this is real, if I was Dr. Reed here, I would be shitting my pants all over again. I would be internally, I'd be like, what the fuck? Like, how did they know exactly where it is? And he gets to a part in the interview where he goes back to the spot with Gary and everything's gone. There's no obelisk there. There's no, I believe he said there's like ashes or remnants of his dog. That's all gone. It's as if his experience was in like a time bubble of some kind. And these Men in Black are able to go back in time and rewatch it or just know, like, how did they know some of the details? Like the dog, how did they know that's a crucial detail that, I'm going to assume that when Gary was calling all of, the military and stuff, I'm pretty certain he didn't say anything about the dog. I mean, he doesn't really say it in this interview, but I would assume he would have left that part out because it's not what he was trying to do. He was just trying to get, the whole alien body thing. So the fact that they knew his dog, like something happened to it. Like, again, if I was Reed and somebody knew a detail that nobody else could know, it just raises so many fucking questions.
That's an interesting point. You mentioned the time bubble. That's something that's consistent with almost every experience or story, is that time slowed down. They were like in a time bubble. And he mentions in his story, we didn't play it, but when he got to the point and his dog Susie started attacking something, he thought it was a bear. But right before that, he said he noticed all of nature go quiet, like the Oz effect, like bugs went away, wind went away. You're just like all of a sudden met with a silent void, which is consistent with many experiencer stories or abduction stories.
Common pattern. Exactly. Every time I hear people saying pitch quiet, time stops, feels like things slowed down, feels like things are frozen, I just say time bubble. I think Dragon Ball Z, Goldo, just, boom, everything's frozen, everything in place. And cool power, right? Just stop time, but you gotta hold your breath. So everything you just said, I echo. Let's keep playing this crazy encounter here.
Have you talked to your work? Do you realize this could condemn your life? What's going on? And at that point, I said, it's time to just get the fuck out of my house.
Kudos to him, man. I don't know what I would do. I don't know. I hope I would react the same way, but I genuinely don't know if I had that experience. However, I'm also very educated, and if I knew that was happening and I had Men in Black in my house, I'd probably be doing the whole Lazar trick of I think it was Lazar or no, Chris Bledsoe. He heard from, I think, Tim Taylor about, like, if you're walking near something where something or whatever is monitoring thoughts, or sing a song in your head, basically, like do something to where people or something can't intrude. So if like, God forbid, Men in Black come in my house or something, I would be doing that. I would be doing everything to keep my mind busy so that they can't get in, and then I would just try and get them out too. But yeah,
where's your warrant?
They say you got to stop talking or you're going to be dead, or we're going to do this to your family and your friends. Just big guys that grabbed me and tortured me. You want to know how they tortured me? You want me to tell you? They took a spike, a railroad spike about this long, and they shoved it through my testicle.
Oh fuck.
Yeah, I didn't want to know that.
Hammer.
Yeah, my God.
Wow.
And of course, I passed out and woke up with a hole in my testicle. And that's a pretty serious, account. That's a pretty serious method of telling somebody you got to stop this.
So my reaction to that is like, obviously that's awful, but two is why not kill him, right? Like I know we can speculate, but like
if they were going back to the Nordics, could be part of the Men in Black, and then he talks about his conversations with Freddy over the years. One of the tenets is like you can't interfere. The alien galactic tenet, like you can't interfere with
free will.
People.
But that's
so like maybe positive. They can't directly like kill him then.
Yeah, but that's positive though. That's the Galactic Federation, supposedly, like they have that rule. The positive beings in the space in the ufology have, it's assumed that we have prime directives, and one of them is you can't fuck with free will. You can't mess with our free will. But I don't think the negative beings give a fuck for, what I mean? Like, I think they're just like, whatever.
But if they broke that though, it's like, then there's consequences for them. Like what they're doing is kind of in a gray area, shoving railroad spikes through people's nads. Maybe that's a gray area. I don't know. It seems like a pretty
pun intended,
pretty interfering to me.
Right.
Just of course speculation. And now I think of railroad spikes like really thick. I mean,
I was thinking the same
long, thin ones.
Dude, I thought the same. I'm like that would, also, like you can't recover from that. Like you got one testicle is gone. So that's a whole other medical issue. This may be like a skeptic part of the conversation, because he's got to like clean up that and get medical attention, and probably can't walk, or very difficult to walk, I would imagine. Extreme pain. And at
unless
this point,
they healed him or something.
You know what? I don't know when this takes place though. Like if this was after he flees to Vancouver and is homeless, or before. Because if it's before, my skeptic meter goes straight on that end, because again, he wouldn't be able to walk or function. He's going to need like a lot of medical attention for a lot of different things. Right. So I'm going to assume this is maybe later,
hyperbole?
But I don't know.
Maybe railroad spike is hyperbole. I don't know why he says railroad spike. It just seems like that.
It could have been a giant fucking nail. Yeah. But even so, dude, if a nail, like I can imagine anything, even a tiny nail, dude, that's gonna like, that's horrible. Right. Like, okay. Anyway.
On the 10th day, from the day I brought the body home, 10 days later, I got in a car and drove to Canada and lived in Canada on the streets for 10 months. 10 months. I mean, I had to.
So at this point, he's been harassed. They harass his parents, and he says, I don't want my family or friends at risk. So he does this drastic measure, and they wipe him out. He doesn't have an employment. They wipe his bank accounts. Very similar to, again, Lazar's story. There's a pattern there of like they can just call up anything. If you have a doctorate, that doesn't matter. That's gone. It's digitally, it's gone, I should say.
Dude, if if the Men in Black come after us, they're gonna wipe out my film degree, and I'm gonna lose everything.
It's not gonna matter much anymore. But that's funny, dude. I have 2 associate's degrees, by the way. Come and get them. I don't give a fuck. Don't put that in. Don't put that in. They're gonna come get me. You know what always reminds me of is that scene in Arrival. One of my favorite alien movies, actually. I think it's like kind of underrated with Charlie Sheen. Do you remember that?
Oh,
from the late 90s, early 2000s. I think it was like late 90s.
Okay. Because there's Arrival that's pretty recent with Amy Adams.
Right. Not that one. No.
I remember the one with Charlie Sheen. I can't remember. I don't remember the movie at all, but I remember at the end, they defeat the aliens and Charlie Sheen says, tell them we're ready for them or something to this little kid. And the little kid's legs bend backwards and he starts running. I'm like, he was an alien too.
Yeah, that was actually a really good twist to the story. Yeah, in the movie, the Arrival with Charlie Sheen, the Men in Black. There's Men in Black, kind of. They're alluding to what that is. There's these 2 guys that show up and they're not human. You find that out later in the movie, but they throw like a little metal object on the ground, like a little metal grenade. And then it spins and shoots up and it like literally just creates a little black hole and it sucks everything in the room into nothingness. Kind of like his dog, unfortunately. And just a weird thing that came to my mind when he was telling the story.
So the Arrival was released in 1996.
No way. In 96 when this happened.
The same year
at least
that this incident happened.
Wow, that's kind of weird.
Had to find a place to live. It was insane. But I survived. And I survived with the help of some other people. Because after 10 months, somebody talked to me on the street who I didn't believe, who said, Jonathan, just came up and said my name. Jonathan, we can help you. We know you're having problems. And I ran out of the store where I was. And then I watched the guy leave the store and I followed him. And I was basically going to take him out. I had a gun at that time. And
this person was offering to help you, though.
Well, but I didn't know that. I didn't know what that meant.
I wouldn't have trusted him either.
Dude, I would have, if I was off the grid and living homeless and like the Men in Black, if you put yourself in his shoes, I think most pretty smart, logical people would do something maybe similar. Maybe not live on the street. Maybe they would try to find some other way to kind of, get by off the grid. But I would do the same thing. I would be like, hey, who are you? Or I would at very least like corner them in an alley with a gun, and try and get some info out of them and then go from there. But I agree.
But they're going to take me. And I thought, I'm tired. I'm tired of dealing with this. Living on the street, being dirty all the time, trying to, survive. And so I just decided, okay, I'm going to do it. So I went to the hotel. I went to the room. And there was nobody in the room but another envelope with my real name on it. I opened it. It said, here's the number. If you want something else, call me. You can stay here as long as you want. And that was pretty cool, because it was like a 5-star hotel. I mean, I hadn't taken a shower in weeks, And
so did you get to know who these people were? Did you develop a relationship?
Yes, I did.
With them?
And they said, well, if you want to talk about it, we're willing to talk to you and we're willing to help you. And the guy said, we are with a group called the Alliance, and we help people like you that have been through this kind of trauma. We know, and the guy's telling me all this on the phone. And he said, we know that you had a problem in the forest, that you had a creature. He was saying all this.
So when I first heard the Alliance, the first thought that came to my mind was people that talk about the Galactic Federation, or I think there's another word for them also, but basically the positive side of whatever's going on behind the scenes here in our reality.
Right.
And clearly they're helping them, and they're following through with their word, and they're like they're very well funded, right? They can stay in a 5-star hotel as long as you want. You got money, right? So I this is where the story, you know, it gets so interesting. With, you have the Men in Black, you have some other events that are coming up right after this, and the Alliance, I'm super curious. One of the things I want to touch on though right here is, again, we're pretending this is real. We're pretending we are Jonathan Reed having this experience, what you're thinking, doing, feeling, all the things. For me, I would want to know everything. I would be like, who are these people that showed up? What's the creature? Like all of it, right? And this interview doesn't go deep into that territory, but that was my burning question after I got through with this interview, was more information on the Alliance, who they are, all those questions open up. But
have you heard of any other stories of the Alliance?
No, just the Galactic Federation.
To me, yeah, exactly. Like the Galactic Federation, it just speaks, which I'm not very convinced by. It just speaks of the whole galactic war of reptilians versus the good guys, and you know, there's a battle for Earth and everything like that. It just, you know, all of a sudden there's this dichotomy, good versus evil, which is just kind of, it's a trope in every story. Like even religions, like most religions don't have a devil or anything. But then we create it. Like we have to have it. We have to have the good, and we have to have the bad, and we have to have an ultimate battle. That's what we crave as humans.
Mm-hmm. So the link is pretty interesting. We're going to skip ahead here to that part.
I kept it in this. I know it's weird, but I just kept it in this coffee can and put it in the corner of the room. And one day I was sitting there, just like in the afternoon, with him, talking to him at like a dining room table. And I went over and got the can, opened it, and just set it in front of us, where I just looked at it. And it's unique. It's really an interesting design. Some people think it's just perfectly flat, but it's not.
So I saw this, and it looks something out of a prop for a movie, like the alien writing. I don't think I've seen anything like that before being described similar to that before. Although I don't really know what the alien writing looks like, because I feel like there has been drawings of stuff like Rendlesham Forest, where I believe the guy saw writing, or there was writing on the craft. Lazar talks about writing in his craft. I've heard it described as similar, like Sanskrit or something, language in the Middle East. This doesn't feel like
I've also heard it like kind of almost like kanji a little bit, which the symbol on the far left maybe resembles a little bit, or actually the kanji actually, isn't that more of a reference to the DMT studies?
Yeah, it
so
is.
I was going to say that, like, this doesn't seem like the Egyptian type hieroglyphics writing that people describe with crafts. Maybe it is closer to the DMT studies, which would reference like reality and being able in interdimensionality.
It's actually contoured in its design. When you really look at it close up, it's almost like it's a sculpture to look at it. And I was sitting there just looking at it, and I was kind of looking at the underside of it, and all of a sudden I just took it like this and I set it on my arm. And just setting it there, it closed tight like a vice around my arm. And I thought, oh shit, you know. And I couldn't get it off. You could not pull it off when it's tight. And I was just sitting there.
It's like a galactic blood pressure thing.
Yeah.
Closing.
I mean, I mean, we've heard stories about alien hardware, but that's been implants. I don't think I've ever heard of another story of like a gifted alien.
It's the
bracelet hardware technology.
There with it, trying to get it off, and all of a sudden it opened, and I could lift it off. So it didn't do anything other than it got tight on my wrist. How did I know to put it on my wrist? I don't know.
It's also pretty, like, if you look at it, you're like, okay, it's designed to go on something appendagey, right? It's not going to go on your neck. It's pretty obvious. Like I assume most humans would tinker with it, right? If you didn't even know what it was or any context, right? You might want to put it near your arm and like, yeah, it probably fits there, right? I think it's pretty like intuitive to figure that out.
Wearing this link, and it seems like you suddenly disappear and then reappear. And,
well, I mean,
it feels unbelievable. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, I totally hear what you're saying, and I totally would agree.
It functions, which sometimes it doesn't. It starts a throbbing inside your chest, literally a pulsation inside your chest that starts from the center and emanates to your extremities and becomes harder and harder. And then when that happens, then it starts to be activated by there. Now I can feel it. I can feel it in my chest. It's painful. But if I hold my chest, it has a tendency to be less painful. And then they make the decision whether
Okay. I have a couple little analysis points here with our background in video production and all the things we do that I don't think Josh touched on, at least in this interview, but maybe he did in the first two-parter series that he did. But the sound effects, the woman screaming, the photography, the flash sounds of cameras in the room, and the chatter afterwards all sound like post-production, like they were put in after the fact to me. So this is my skeptical brain coming in saying that it doesn't feel right there. Those two, the audio elements, the visual elements, if we'd have to, like, I can't remember if we can go frame by frame in YouTube, but I'll play it again here real quick just to finish up the thought. It's flashing in and out pretty brightly. At some point, he disappears entirely. But because it's so bright, you can easily mask this, right? And obviously the quality here isn't the best, but I'll keep going. So these little snapshots that you're hearing, they sound entirely fake. Like, but I know this was supposedly a press conference. So maybe that was, maybe all these are real sound effects, but to me, they sound very much like staged Hollywood library of sound effects, especially for the time period. It's kind of like the cat sound you'll hear in movies all the time. It's always like this sound. It's always the same cat from like the 50s whenever they recorded it. There's lots of there's a name for this, by the way, like cliche sound effects in film and stuff. Anyway, it's like, as Josh said here very clearly, it feels very unbelievable. I would say this is one of the more skeptical things.
I think it could be very easily staged. Like if it was a press conference or a TV show, I can't remember what it was.
He said it's a TV show.
It was something with a big production, right? Like should be multiple cameras. Like we should be able to cut to the audience or a wide shot and not be in one shot. Like it would be harder to fake if there was cutting between a couple cameras, like the director's like camera 1, camera 2. That'd be harder to fake.
Yep.
It's easy to fake with a singular camera like that, getting something bright. And the other thing too is, if it was maybe it wasn't a very good TV show, maybe they didn't have very good cameras, but so if you had something bright like that, like he turned into a bright flashing thing, I would assume that the cameras would not be on auto exposure.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a camera, like I have a camera right here, and it's on auto exposure, if I, make it bright, it's gonna clamp down. See how it clamped down and then brightened back up, just like that did. So if it was a professional camera on manual settings, it wouldn't automatically clamp down. It would just go white completely. You wouldn't have seen it go dark.
Do that with whatever camera recording was going on and whenever this took place. I think it was like 99, maybe. I could be getting that wrong, but
well, I mean, auto functions were not very good. I mean, they had auto functions, and they were probably, most auto functions were garbage until the camera that you have, like 2015 came out, where they can actually auto focus well and auto expose. So, I mean, I guess it depends like what kind of cameras they were. Like, to me, if it was a legitimate, like, big name TV show with a big budget, they would have cameras that were not on auto. They would have been all set manually. And if they would have all been set manually, then that big bright flash, you wouldn't have seen the flare. It just would have gone white, instead of like it automatically clamping down so you could see the flare and it going dark and then it getting brighter again.
There's sound effects of what sounds like old school cameras flashing, right? Where are those photos? Where are the still photos of the light flash and him? Like, you can also see the flash like going from the left up to the right, like as if he's turning into a light orb and floating away, so to speak. Where's the other backup cameras? Also, you just said this is a TV show. They have to have more than one camera. Why would they only have one angle of this, right? Maybe they have another one that I haven't seen in the other video analysis. I don't know. But this is, out of all the things in his story, when I saw this, I was like, oh, that raised that he was tipping my meter from like skeptic to believer. And then I saw this and it went right back. And I was like, damn it, dude. Like, cause he's very, a lot of what he's saying, I'm kind of discerning and, I'm doing my best to discern, I should say. And, it's just one of those things. And I feel like, if I'm being honest, most experiencer stories have this. There's something in the story that throws you for a loop. It just doesn't make sense with everything else. And I don't know why that is the way that is, but I know other people have talked about this, and it's frustrating because you want to believe, you want to be all in, but then some stupid shit like something like this happens and it really it just skews you back the same way. And then you have to re-question everything all over again. And so anyway.
Yeah. Do you throw because you're like, that doesn't convince me. It makes me less convinced. Do you throw the baby out with the bathwater? Like, well, we got to disregard everything now. Or is it like,
Ramsey talks about this, yeah. Like a lot of people, it's like, do you, because all the other stuff is so compelling. And so it's tricky. It's really,
another thing with the technology is like, I mean, this thing gives Freddy, the alien, and other aliens the ability to pop in and out. Right. But obviously that doesn't happen when they do that. They don't go into a big flash or anything. I mean, but
it's also not designed.
He's
for
a dumb human. He doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't have his unlocked telekinesis or anything.
And if I remember right, he says that this bracer link is controlled by Freddy's superiors, these light beings that have some kind of a dimension, space that they get teleported to when this thing is on. So he's not the one. Look, Dr. Reed is not physically controlling this thing, or if he is, he hasn't mentioned it in this interview, but it's as if he puts it on and then it takes a while to kick in and then it does its thing. I have a feeling whatever this is sort of some kind of, I mean, let's say it's real, for the sake of fun here, right? Is it definitely teleports you, right? It probably does some other things. It's definitely not designed for humans. It's designed for Freddy, maybe Freddy specifically, maybe all grays that are like him or hybrids like him. But whatever it does, it does have another layer of control to it. So that's my thing is like, well, where did he go here? This was some follow-up questions too. Like what I would love to, talk to Reed and say, well, what happened after that interview? Like, where'd you go? Where'd you come back? Also my last question that was eating me up alive is he supposedly still has this thing and he's got it rotating through his like SEAL team that he's got, basically his personal kind of, military group that's behind him, supporting him. So I said to myself, okay, let's assume that's true. You could right now call whoever's got it and bring it on another follow-up with Josh on Polarity, or anybody for that matter, right? You have a physical thing that somebody can photograph and film in 4K, 8K. Why aren't you doing that? So there's my skeptic meter going back again. Is right. Like you clearly have this thing. You can't do any of that incognito. I know this is like his insurance policy to some extent, but again, like if I was Reed, I would probably think in these terms. I would probably be like, I'm going to bring it out again. I'm going to demo it again. We got all Congress paying attention to it, or maybe not all Congress, but we got the most mainstream momentum here. Like this is the best time to pull this out.
Plus he's 80 years old.
That too. You don't got much time left.
You don't got much time left, man.
Your stash is doing great. The stash is thriving. Stash is yeah.
And he said that should have changed a long time ago. He said we had hoped that would change. Yeah. And he said you're not all like that. He said just a percentage. But he said the unfortunate thing is that percentage is extremely vocal, is extremely apparent that you haven't. He said, look at all the prisons that you have.
So he's talking about the basically the low consciousness of our collective, or at least at the time when they were talking about this. And this goes into, I'm just going to make a quick connection here. This is kind of important, but the law of one talks about how humanity ascends, and how we ascend is that the collective consciousness of the planet, all 8 billion plus of us, if 51% of us are all in the higher frequency, we're all going to go in that direction. If it's 49%, it's not. We're not going to evolve. And this is kind of what Freddy is alluding to here with his thoughts and with talking with Reed telepathically.
With people that you can't even maintain yourself, you lock them away. He said, if that was my world, he said, they would have eliminated those problems. And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, we just no longer would have been able to function. And I said, does that mean they would have killed you? They would have ended your life? He said, yes. And he said, that's a good thing. He says.
So I have a small challenge with this one too, is he's saying like you basically got to shape up and you can't kill or rape or anything, and if you don't, it's like instant death penalty. So it purges the negative polarities in a species of conscious beings. And I don't agree with this on a personal level. I think at least the things that I've learned with the spiritual connections of the phenomenon are they really, if you think about it, they kind of anchor to like Jesus's ultimate teachings, which were true unconditional love. Like everybody, no matter how bad of an apple they are, shouldn't be killed. They should be rehabilitated essentially with unconditional love. to restore them from a dark path into more of a light path. But that's just my own point of view there.
Well, I wonder too, I mean, that might not be, he said, his home world.
Right.
That's probably not every single alien culture.
Very true.
And
yeah, maybe
that could be their own awakening in frequency too. Like if it was, for example, the Greys, like that's where they are. Like, well, we just cut that behavior off and we move on, and it'll help us raise our frequency ultimately later. But there could be other races where they're like, we got other ways. We got telepathy and empathy and ways to stop it like that. I don't, that's a slippery slope of just like, you get very much into the fascism of, and just like, oh, you break the law, you dead. That's a very slippery slope for any society.
I'll say that to follow up with my comment with what you just said. I'm also assuming that his species, his world, etc., are familiar with the law of one and all those things, and are in line with that, right? And that, as you just said, it might not be the case whatsoever.
We can't have that. We
can't tolerate that.
We need to be all in the same direction at the same point. And then I talked to him more about me attacking him, me, hitting him and saying, I'm sorry for this, but I did it because of my dog. And there's no reflection. Anytime I've said that, it's like he doesn't hear it. It's like he just doesn't even recognize when I say, my dog was killed. I was sad. I was very upset. It's like he's not even getting that message at all.
So this is one of the parts where I really stopped the interview to actually, I think about this, because he keeps going on this clip here. But what I found fascinating was what is this block? What does this mean? Why is the dog, which is, again, arguably one of the most human parts of this story that most people can relate to, right? Because I would say most people have pets or have had pets. We know the feelings that come with them and how helpless a lot of them are, right? And we do our best to protect them. And so, like, is this block Freddy? Is it just Freddy just can't say anything? And why? Is it his superiors telling him, like, hey, you don't want, if Reed brings this up, like, don't touch on it? My then thought with the spiritual connection of things and like our soul plans, right? Our soul contracts. Clearly, if soul contracts are a thing, this entire event in Reed's life was orchestrated on purpose. Same with Freddy. So, because they're both conscious beings and they both agreed to this. So maybe Freddy already knows that. Reed doesn't, because Reed's, under the veil of forgetting, and maybe hasn't gone into the spiritual side, or at least I would say the where those connections live. But what, again, just like I want the audience to think, like, why is this reflection blocked? Why can't he talk about it? And then I said, wait a minute, why didn't Reed, or maybe he has done this, it's just not in the interviews, why didn't he talk? If my first instinct would be, this is weird. Why can't he reflect on my dog's death? Because this is the whole point. I attacked him and I wouldn't be in this situation if my dog didn't fucking find him. Right. So why wouldn't you ask the Alliance? Hey, I talk to Freddy every other day now. He's cool. We're chill. Like we made up, right? What's the deal with him not remembering the dog or not reflecting on the dog? Because they have to know, I would assume, right? They know all the other things about what's going on. So that was the other thing. I was like, man, that would be what I would have done. I would have asked, that end. But now then like, this is my last question is, does this ultimately, this dog part, like, is this the big factor that you can't trust Freddy, which we'll find out next is maybe not the case, or it is the case that he is trustworthy, but this is a notch on my belt of him being, at least my thoughts of Freddy being good or bad. Let's say they're very neutral. up until this point, and then it's like I don't know him now. It's like now I'm thinking maybe he's hiding something, because this is a very important thing that Reed wants to know.
I'm going to kind of personify Freddy a little bit too, like maybe kind of to my earlier point that Freddy's civilization, maybe they're not perfect. And Freddy is, we haven't really touched on it, he's a hybrid. Freddy says he's a hybrid. He's not all alien from another planet. He's part human. He was born, I think he said he was born on Earth.
He was born on Earth, yeah. That's what he said.
So also, Reed does mention somewhere where it kind of seems like Freddy watching over him and hanging out with him is almost like a punishment, like an assignment. Like, you messed up, Freddy.
I forgot about that.
You gotta learn about this. And so I wonder if Freddy's sitting there like, hey, what are you talking about? Hey, we just kill people, you know? And they're like, no, like his superiors are like, no, Freddy, you need to learn empathy. You killed his dog.
Right.
And it's not okay for us to go around killing people. And
point.
So maybe it is a block on Freddy's part, specifically him.
Right.
Not like he's not perfect.
Yeah.
If I'm like making him human, if he's part human, he's not perfect. So
yeah, no, that's great. Those are great points, dude.
Now, I haven't told you this, but he came and intervened in something a few years ago. He actually saved me.
All right, this part's pretty wild.
From what?
Well, I was at some people's house in the summer. They had a summer dinner party outside their backyard. They had a really nice garden and patio. And I had gone out there because it was about dusk, and they had some fireflies that were flying around, and I just went out to look at them. And all of a sudden, there was this huge, big reptilian thing standing next to me that grabbed me and threw me about 30 feet into the bushes, into their shrubbery.
So wait, this is like a reptilian looking human?
Yes. It was a reptilian-looking, dinosaur-looking thing.
Can you explain it visually?
Well, I've drawn it in pictures. It had some clothing, but not much. It looked prehistoric. It was very, very much a reptile.
But humanoid?
Snarling, well, I don't know. It wasn't very human-looking. It looked like a dinosaur.
Humanoid. Like 2 legs, 2 arms.
Yes, yes, and one head.
How tall?
2 eyes, probably 7 feet at least. And it just appeared on their patio, just right next to me. I mean, I had no time. It just grabbed me as I'm realizing what's there and threw me across the way. And then another one appeared and tried to reach down to get me. And all of a sudden, Freddy was there, and he just, whatever he did, made them melt, made them just dissolve onto evaporated, nothing left. Yeah, onto the ground where there was nothing left.
All right, so this is the last juiciest bit of this interview, at least the parts that we're covering right here. I found a lot of what Reed said, that a pattern recognition emerged with a lot of what you hear with reptilians or Draco species. Is the majority of them are negative. They've been around a long time. They're also always fighting the Alliance or the Federation or the good sides, right? And also the same negative things. They see us as only food. They hate us, et cetera, et cetera. If you look back into the Men in Black that he's experiencing, we didn't cover the clip, but we can probably reinsert it somewhere, is the part where he talks about when they leave. He's got a friend in Seattle's police department, and he sees the Men in Black leave in a car, like a nondescript kind of black Ford or whatever. And behind them, there's a cop car. So he's like, okay, I'm going to call my buddy. And because I know the day and the time that this cop car is following the Men in Black, or escorted the Men in Black to his house. because he asked them, "Hey, I'm going to call the cops." He said, "That's cool. We're with them too." And he calls his friend at the cops, at the police department. He says there was no recorded dispatch for that location at that day and time. So whatever the cop was, a couple of thoughts came to mind. One, is it just an illusion? Like the cop itself, like they can shapeshift. Are the Men in Black reptilians? Because reptilians can shapeshift, according to lots of people. So
I didn't really recall that. That's interesting.
So like a lot of patterns clicked when he was saying all this stuff, and it tracks with a lot of like what people say. They're big, they're very like mean, etc. All the things, very muscular. It's always a very common thing. One of my biggest questions out of this was, well, Freddy's clearly like also always he has some kind of telepathic link or connection to Reed now, like he's just said it was a few years ago. So I'm going to assume 2020 at the latest, 2022, 2023, maybe. Doesn't say a date, but that's very recent. You know what I mean? Post all this shit happening. And reptilians come out of nowhere, and they just come in and literally just trying to kill him. And then Freddy shows up, vaporizes him. How did he do it? I don't know. Got questions there. Freddy says they're part of the bad ones, and it goes into all this stuff. So those are my thoughts. But I just find the reptilian angle really fascinating here.
Yeah, I don't even know what to kind of make of that. It's like, well, you had this crazy experience in the 90s. You have continuing experience with, a hybrid gray alien. And then you get to fight some reptilians for some reason. Like, what would be the point? Why all these years later, they want to kill you? Yeah, it's
out of nowhere too. They ambush him. They could have ambushed him apparently at any time. Why now? Why at that dinner? Why at a guest house with a lot of people around too, instead of at his apartment where he's alone? Or there's a lot here. It's obviously a 3-hour interview that we've kind of cut into our biggest questions and things that were really burning within us to kind of ask and point at here. And I thought Josh did a great job with the interview as a whole, bringing Reed in multiple times to kind of cover some details that we're getting. I wouldn't say lost, but just there's a lot to tell, obviously, like telling the whole thing, a lot involved.
It is, and it's hard to steer to
totally
people with experiences. I see this in a lot of interview, and even talking with a few people that have had experiences in real life. They're wanting to tell their story, and sometimes it's not always sequential to them, and it's hard to bring them back to get like a perfectly chronologically ordered story. And so I think that was tough on Josh's part. Like he did a very good job, like you said. I want to go back to this. Like we just jumped 10 years ahead. I want to go back to that second day, that third day.
Yeah, and his story is just there's so much to it. It's so like dense with details and things to think about, things that the patterns to connect with, again, other stories, other encounters, other experiencers. It's got like a little bit of everything, dude. It's got the tech, it's got an autopsy, it's got the hybrid aspect, the good and bad war alliance, Men in Black, reptilians. I mean, it's got all the juice in it, for something that. And so where I'm at with like my meter, when I first saw the footage, I thought for sure it was, I was extremely skeptical. I was like, this does not seem real at all. The skin looks leathery. It doesn't look like a normal gray, yada, yada, yada. Now, after hearing his story here, from Polarity, face to face, the whole 3 hours end to end in a couple chunks, that I watched it in, I am much more in the believer category now. I would say I'm probably 60-40, 70-30 belief versus like skeptic, that's all BS or hoax. And I just, my biggest question is like, if Dr. Reed, if you ever see this video, the link sounds like your biggest, it's your insurance policy, but it's also your biggest proof. in a way. You got to let, you'd have to be strategic about how you go about doing this, but like filming it, with really high definition stuff, with scientific equipment, like, get in contact with the people at Skinwalker Ranch, maybe, that can help you out, right? They've got a lot of gear. They got the funding. You might be able to keep it secret. I don't know. But it also may out you. And obviously you don't want that to happen, but those are my thoughts. Also, if Freddy ever catches wind of the video, please don't stalk us, like all the other podcasters that I've interviewed. And I'm also very curious if Josh gets a visit from Freddy and he makes a follow-up video. Would be really, really crazy.
Oh man, I can't wait for that.
Dude, that would be wild. That would be super wild.
I'd say I'm 55% skeptic, maybe 60% skeptic. What I don't like about saying that is that this story has the most evidence that I've seen, physical evidence that somebody has provided out of any encounter. So the thing that makes this shitty that I'm saying this is that the more evidence that he's had, the more skeptical I become of it, because it's like, then you can scrutinize the evidence. We're scrutinizing this 1990s tech and we're saying, well, it doesn't look real to me. And so it's very unfair that it's like the more evidence he provided, the less realistic it seemed.
What about the, we didn't touch on this, but what about the blood test? Because the blood test came back, what was it? 28% of its DNA was not of this earth. Like that was pretty, pretty compelling, just that. And the fact that it also had, I think, markers of, again, like dolphin and like sea turtle or something spliced in. What the fuck's that about? Like, are they, we forgot that that's a big point actually. Like, is Freddy a gray human hybrid with other animal DNA, and why?
Or does like just the hybrid part, the alien part, resemble those markers in DNA? So you bring that up. So now, like with that, it's like, okay, maybe I'm 50-50. The video of the link, the hit or miss with some of the autopsy stuff. I don't know. It's hard to tell. Like,
yeah,
if we knew, then we knew.
And if the alliance is real, are they? I don't know if he mentioned it towards the later end. I don't think he did, but like, is he still in touch with the alliance? Because if so, put him on the phone. Maybe I don't. Maybe they won't. But like, just a lot of open ended questions there for follow up. I really hope that Polarity gets a follow up interview to maybe dive deeper or do something in person. Would be really cool too. I also hope that this topic gets, Reed's case gets kind of maybe revitalized here. And that's, part of the reason why, we're commenting is I do feel like if any part of this is true with some evidence, there's some good stuff to latch onto here to bring it back up into, the modern, movement of disclosure.
But listening to him, like, I don't know, I tend to believe people, and I'm a bad liar. So I'm just, the way people tell their story, it's like they'd have to be an excellent liar or be very convinced of their story to be able to recount this story over and over very accurately, very similarly, and be able to go through it with the emotions like they had been there. Let's say, 1, you have to be telling the truth. 2, you have to be like a sociopath where like you can just do this on a whim. Or 3, you convinced yourself like you're delusional. And I'm not making a verdict at all. I'm just saying those are the options, I guess.
Well, that kind of wraps things up for us here with our deep dive commentary. We'd love to know your thoughts if you've seen the interview or past interviews from Reed. What are your thoughts? What are your comments? Do you have similar questions? Do you have other questions that we haven't raised? Sure you do. Let us know. Put it in the comments. We'd love to know also if this is a good format to do more commentary deep dives like this. I tend to find myself watching so many interviews and podcasts, and there's always questions. There's always questions that don't get asked for any reason. And I think they're important to ask every little thing. I think every question, every answer holds a new clue for us to piece this crazy detective board together of ufology and what's going on in our reality here. And so with that said, please like, comment, subscribe, follow us for more. We're getting our social medias up and everything, and let us know what you'd like to see more of.
Peace out. See you next time.
Peace.
Oh shit, Danny, look out behind you, Freddy.
Thanks for watching.